Resolution to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Schwer,
Here.
Councilmember Wong. Here. Councilmember Norby,
Here.
Councilmember Cole is absent, and Mayor Mungy.
Here. Get the motion to adopt the agenda, please.
So moved.
So moved, Councilmember Schwer.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Norby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. We got two city business action items this evening. First up is health insurance carrier change, and please turn it over to Dan.
Mayor, council members, we got some good news on our health insurance for this year. At least two of the members were here last year when we got the news at the 11th hour that our carrier at that time, is currently our chief, was increasing our insurance rate 50%, which was quite a shock for us. Last year, after we received that, we hired a consultant, Gallagher Insurance Group, and they ran an RFP, and the results were we had a couple of vendors that were going to provide a little bit of a savings, but it wasn't enough. This year, we went out again, Gallagher and RFP. Number of responses, and right now we're recommending changing our health insurance company from KEEP to United Healthcare. Is a 17% reduction from where we're at. KEEP gave us a 2.36%. Is a much better. It has more of an open network in the state of Minnesota. It has no primary care provider designation needed, no referrals needed within the network. Employees can seek the care at the provider and clinic of their choice. They also have value-added programs, rewards program, a zero virtual visits program, an employee assistance program, self-care by Able To, Quit for Life. There's a number of. They also offer. We would have to. Insurance. We met last week with insurance committee. Unanimously decided. So what does that mean for where we're at in the budget process? In the budget, we reduction $1,000. Manager and myself will meet later to come up with some options of what we can do in the general fund, including but not. With that, of the insurance carrier to move the rest.
With all due respect of everyone at the table, what are your plans on increasing or leaving the employee contribution the same?
The employee contribution will down to match
So why would you decrease the employee contribution if potentially next year the contribution would increase?
That's part of the option. Saving from a levy standpoint. One of the recommendations. One of the components to won't determine that stays within the budget. He's totally believe. Well, part of the reason why our insurance I do, they look at 2 years. The ratio of claims to premiums 2 years ago was 127%. In other words, what it means for every dollar that we paid in premiums, they lost. Sort of what drove that 50%. Our premium ratio this past year was considerably the opposite. 50 premiums went up considerably every year. But yeah, we're riding on a roller coaster. So yes, one of the options. Some of that money.
Mhm. I mean, something to consider too is that if you went to PEEP and then United Healthcare, if you find and go shop the marketplace again, you're gonna find a trend of people wanting to pick you up because of the, so I would keep into consideration that, for all of the employees at this table, if you move from PEEP to United Healthcare to Preferred One, Blue Cross Blue Shield, you name it, it becomes inconsistent for your employees as well. So I would recommend that you wouldn't decrease the contribution for potential increase in the future. That could happen. That would be my recommendation.
So the employees component to it that they're going to be charged. City's contribution part is what. Clearly, is that new citizens. Part. So,
I can't speak on behalf of the table, but that's me. That's my
and-
opinion.
and my gut says that's what I would do too, but that's not my. Pretty loud and clear, and that's kind of what my sense.
I'm done on my end.
For that.
Yep, just, resolution needs to be, I guess,
To gain clarity, what we're approving or not approving tonight is just the move from provider A to provider B. It's not what Councilmember Schwer brought up. Okay.
yeah. So you're approving the move, and then you're authorizing the mayor and the city. At a later date, that's when.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks, clarity. So moved, Councilmember Schwer.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Coe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next up in city business action items is, item B, capital improvement plan, 2024 to. Turn that back over to you, Mr.
capital improvement plan has been distributed to the city council members, actually quite some time ago, and, as I've been saying over and over again, that the capital, a lot of money. It's really what drives a significant part of your budget. Whether equipment, investment. Now, as levy increase, part of that 8.5%. And now that we start to go through the dialogue and looking at the plan, already heard Public Works Director Ron Ritchie talk about the tax course. Even that 2% still drove the PCI down. So is there more money than you can invest in bring the PCI score to an acceptable determined, but obviously if it's still going down, one would say that more money is going to need to be invested. As far as our facilities are concerned, we've all seen what happened to the community center. Part of that is lack of planning. That's why we've brought in, since I've been here, a 10-year capital improvement plan, looking and trying to get people to understand through financial plans what we need to start allocating towards that. In addition, for the facilities, one of the big pieces that we need to, it is one of the items that is plan is to allocate $25,000 assessment of our facilities. That does is it goes from top to bottom, covers your exterior grounds, it covers the exterior of your facilities, all the way through watertight, your HVAC, and looks at the useful life of those pieces of equipment that we're covering everything. Once we do that, what we're going to end up seeing is that the cost for our facilities are going to go up significantly. We've got a number for parks. We've got a number of studies that are still to be done for our parks. There's a lot of different visions for our park system. Obviously, you can see that we ended up having to move some of the, like Northwood parks needed to be moved out. I think 7. I think we had to move it out to 1 for funding to be available. That's even at a 0.55 levy increase. And when we look at it covers the 3 major areas, our streets, parks. The other areas seem to be doing pretty good. Even equipment will require many increases in our internal charges to departments in the funding. There's a number of big ticket items that are out there. This is for you to ask questions. All the department heads are here. Make sure that you're comfortable, you understand what's being requested. Give us, staff, direction, and what you want to see as far as the future for the city. And whatever you say in adjustments, we'll make adjustments through improvement plan. We'll make adjustments from improvement plan, which will have impacts on our. We'll be able to make recommendations next year, with additional funding on those. So I thought for tonight, what we're going to do is that we're going to go look at our capital improvement plan from a categoric standpoint. In other words, we're going to look at, equipment. And any questions that you have regarding equipment, please ask. Department heads were the ones to request, so they should be able to answer any questions related to them. Then we'll go through, say, parks and so forth. So with that, why don't we start off, with the equipment fund itself?
I ask a general question
Oh,
before we start.
you certainly can.
So again, as we look at each one of these plans.
Yep.
I'm gonna pick on Park and Rec, because it happens to be the page I've got open. There's $2.8 million set aside for Northwood improvements. I had no idea what that is.
Mhm.
So by approving it as it stands, does that mean we're setting that money aside to move forward, not necessarily knowing what it is?
There are descriptions on the projects themselves that are in the backup documents. We certainly can ask, the department, head who submitted that request to give clarification for any of those. At the end of the day, when you approve this plan, because we're on an annual budget process, you're truly only approving the 2020.
That was the piece I needed. Thank you.
What is good from a planning standpoint for our department heads, is that this is kind of the plan unless something drastically happens that they can follow and that they know their next year piece of business preparing for. It becomes very, very critical, obviously, and not to say it's not critical in other areas, but for the streets. So they can start to work with WSB ahead of time, identify those streets, start to get ready, with the engineering components to it. So when the year starts, in the spring, that they've got their bids out, they've got results, and they're hitting road working. And so, yeah, it helps us plan. Now, to answer your question a little bit deeper, all of these items, what it does is it feeds into what is the need to be able to fund if you decide later to absolutely do that Northwood project. Decide not to, obviously, and nothing substitutes it, there's going to be money that's available.
Okay.
And those are the questions that need to come up. So it's absolutely excellent question to start us off, and hopefully we get a lot of that dialogue tonight and the question.
So just one quick follow-up. So approving a plan and item the way it exists doesn't mean we necessarily are approving something 7 years down the road. That doesn't give somebody, okay, I like the head shake, thank you.
Yeah. And some of those
I
numbers,
haven't even picked on you yet.
no, but, and I'm thinking most of these are mine, and a lot of them, I didn't even put the numbers in. So, I mean, the stuff that's way out, to try to go and put a real number on that right now, it's really hard to, that'd be really hard to do. So a lot of these numbers in here, I'm like, where'd this come from? Or, I mean, the Northwood Park building, I hadn't even heard of it. So, I mean, some of these numbers, I mean, I had to concentrate on 2024 and 25, and some of these numbers out here are just like a number out there that I don't even know where it came from, but to go and try to get a real number for every one of these line items, it's not realistic right now, so.
Thank you.
Go easy on me, Tim.
I will, I promise.
I got your back.
Okay, thanks.
So if you look at the vehicle and equipment first, to it, which, page 12 of 204, 13 of 204, and continues all the way down to page 14 of 204 of the summary page to it, there's a long list of equipment on there. So the question and how we'll go, unless you want to do it, a different way, is that are there questions with any of these items that are on this equipment? All of the equipment on here is, if it's a general fund request, it's funded through the internal service fund for equipment. If it's a enterprise fund, like water, wastewater, electric, they're paid for by the funds.
My only question, other than the fact we own a lot of nice stuff, is more on the police interceptors. They appear to be the only thing that's on a schedule. You know, it looks like a replacement every 5 years. Is there, did I miss something as I try to draw lines across? Is that really the only thing that we have timed out, where the rest of them are just kind of like when they're closer to being really tired?
A very good question. No, the reason why you see that this is a 10-year plan and all of the other equipment is 10-year plus, so you're only gonna see it being repetitive months on there, where, the others are on a 6-year, replacement cycle.
I assume moving that in or out really doesn't save the city much, because the value of the vehicle drops and the replacement value goes up, and
Well, it does save, because you push it out, you know, a year or two. Look at that over a 40-year cycle. It would save you significant.
or do you only save it once?
Nope, you'll save it over that 40-year cycle, because it's being pushed out further and, you know, further. So, you know, I'll use the math, I'll use 42 years. So if it's a 6-year cycle, you're replacing them 7 times. 7 times, let's just say $100,000 is $700,000. Now, if I'm replacing them once every 10 years, I'm only doing it 4 times. So I just, absolutely, those adjustments.
Okay, thank you.
I believe we made that switch in the spots going from 5 years to 6 years.
Yeah, I remember them being shorter.
Yeah.
They're pretty beat up, but
It's like, one question I have is how much do you maintain some of this equipment and vehicles? There are some vehicles here, have to, you know, oil changes, brakes, et cetera. I'm just wondering for some of those vehicles that to specific vehicles, that might have a different cost, so I'm just
Councilmember Wong, I think that's an excellent item that you brought up. I don't have a specific answer for you today, but that's something we definitely should try to take a look at to see, because you're absolutely right. So in the operating budgets, for whether it's an enterprise fund or a general fund, that's the fuel costs, repair costs for vehicles. And so absolutely, we should take some sort of look and be able to provide some information.
What is a trailer camera?
I'm sorry,
Trailer camera.
Kind of exactly what to describe. Actually, it's a, you've probably seen them around. Mobile
Oh, the
rectangular
ones they
unit
put-
with a telescope
Okay.
arm and cameras top.
Like a regular, like a pulling a trailer camera. I'm like, that's one hell of a price for a trailer camera.
Yeah.
Okay, the ones they just put out there and put boom up and film and listen?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
is that like the one
Yeah.
Beam and Point Bear.
You probably saw it, you cruise around Stillwater, when the river was, had them all along the river. Just here, on real time.
How many do we have?
So far. That's priority.
Oh, priority, I'm sorry. Okay.
That we can like borrow through like the
Throw it out, first if we get it, the issue that would come into play is what network is the actual internal, so if we were to borrow it to have this in your city, you're the only ones that can our network. Please, yes, we could borrow it out. I have a staff member our technology.
An idea where you put it?
Ball games, copper thieves in town, parks that get graffiti on them. All over, wherever the crime is driving the need for it.
Casey on
Exactly. Yep, all over.
How far out,
I think it's 4 units, so it's kind of up, from the vendors that to do, but the more expensive ones. Option that, give us all the features.
Ron, which truck is yours on here?
That's out a few years. It's the one with the lift kit
Okay.
and the glowing lights, blue and green.
You can have the thumper radar
Yeah.
mounted onto it?
Radar detector.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, do you have any sort of statistics?
Probably not in, readily available, but popularity in them. If there are times, so if you have a camera somewhere, and so it's now gonna be seen, and I'm gonna get arrested and processed. Up a giant police. Got some other agencies that have them, I don't have any apps saying, oh, how do you count the crimes that would have occurred if you have this there? Got to communication. So that it was that unknown factor or that unknown stat of how many did it deter?
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm
Any other questions on the vehicles and equipment? We'll move on categorically is buildings and facility improvement. But before we do that, why don't we just take a little moment, and there's some pizza here for, in between.
Someone has to be the first one. It's always that first
Page
one.
9.
Always like the guy with the gun to go first.
Gotta make sure it's good.
That's right.
Take as many as you want.
Page 9 of 204. In your packet is buildings and facility improvement.
That's what we were just saying, so it seems like the page is
Oh,
not here.
So I'm a little too far?
Yeah, so,
I am not.
Oh,
No, we have
Get back.
Diner tonight, so I'm gonna try and stop by there later.
What page? Building, so this one? I didn't know we had.
Yep.
Page two, yeah.
Yeah, page 2. I've
Sorry,
got
no.
the packet open, so 9 of 204.
This is two of them.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was having a hard time following.
They're rough.
You know that one.
Hence the reason why.
Yep, over here.
I had a client once who,
I can take it.
when I started working for them,
Take 'em down, you look good.
Public
Speed
Works,
up a little
they
bit.
didn't have a
You don't win either way.
Oh, really?
See if I had a fire truck go past. my
Oh,
house.
gosh, you scared me for a second there. You paused
Had a
there.
fire.
I had a fire.
That wouldn't surprise me over there.
So he'd come by in the morning.
Oh, crazy.
No, it's not crazy.
Send him a bird.
He said, okay.
No, absolutely not.
No.
I love fire coffee.
Some things technology is new harder.
Eh.
Some you can't even.
He was old. He talked in
I know, I know.
He's like,
Is it working fine? Call me.
I wasn't yet, or
Yeah.
still absent? Am I present or absent? Mentally or physically? Both.
You're present at 5:01.
Thank you.
Yes.
Way to make late. What's that?
No. It wasn't over there.
Who's paying? Oh. I'm a volunteer.
Yeah, I gotta keep. I became the president of the relief association.
I ate these.
I told you that.
He's not here?
Yeah,
He's in.
I don't have that. Here's that guy. Congratulations, John.
As a reminder, guys, kind of coming from me, but should we speak up? Because the speakers are having a hard time picking this up.
All right, let's continue, facility.
If we could go back to equipment real
Certainly.
quick, I just was wondering, there's Bobcat on there a few times, and I'm just wondering, I mean, there's a lot of vehicles here. Are there opportunities that have happened or are foreseeable in which vehicles may be on their way out, can still be used in maybe another department, et cetera, or buying used? Is that an option?
I think it's a very good option. When you see Bobcat can be tool cats, can be a skid steer. But yes, you are seeing it in multiple, departments. From electric, has Bobcats listed on there. Parks and Recreation has Bobcats listed on there. Street maintenance has Bobcats listed on theirs. So let's turn it over to, let's kind of look at, both, John from the electric and Ron, Public Works. Do you want to kind of address that?
Just real quick, the electric side has one Bobcat toolcat dedicated just for the department. Here,
that's a shared cost, or a shared, for the Bobcat, and we also have Bobcat Toolcats, 2 of them. And them vehicles basically take care of all the snow plowing on the sidewalks and paths. And them are probably 2 of the vehicles that go out daily, summer and winter. Just because our town is not, not that big, they're used, we use them for, picking up dirt, seeding, black dirt, restoration. You can put, snow plows on them, snow blowers. So they're something that gets lots of hours on them, all year round. So it's, by the time, I think we have these on a 6-year replacement program is what they're on. By the time we're done with them, they're pretty much, shot, because they're used so often.
When you're buying used, like on the Bobcat itself, the normal Bobcat, it's like $30,000 government savings. You'll get that on the back end basically when you go trade it in or sell it. Cost is so reduced to government that used probably.
You guys also keep. Because summer help that comes in. So it's like,
Yes.
and you do a hand-me-down vehicle for.
Yep. So we do repurpose, a lot of our vehicles as best that we can.
Is 5 years not long enough to replace? I mean, it sounds like, and I know a little bit about that type of equipment. You're using it that much.
I think that's kind of the sweet spot. We've kept them longer. We've had them like for 7 years, and the axles go out on them, and it's like a $16,000 repair, so it gets to a point. So I think if we can keep on that kind of rotation with them, I think that's a sweet spot for us.
Okay. Do you find yourself replacing and doing a lot of maintenance on some of those higher end, like an axle or something like that? Are you doing that kind of stuff already with that 5-year plan?
Yes.
Oof.
But not like the $14,000 repairs. We do a lot. There's a fair amount of $5,000 repairs on those machines because we use them for plowing the sidewalks, and put snow blowers on them. And they're the arms that are on them that hold this equipment, they get bent. And it's a super common problem with them, and that's a $5,000 repair. The alternative, which we kick back and forth every year we talk about it, there are sidewalk machines that are out there. They're $280,000 equipped. These are $60,000, $65,000 machines, or I guess they're a little more now.
80-something.
Yeah, they're probably $80,000 now, but I don't want to say we're kind of pushing them to the max with how we're using them, but we weigh out the options for what these other machines are. These sidewalk machines, they're kind of just a one-purpose machine, but they're built way more heavy duty for that kind of. A lot of cities that plow all their sidewalks, they have these machines. I believe Oakdale has like 4 of them, but they're super expensive. They're over $250,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on to facility improvement. Any questions, anything that pops out, you'll see, that there's an item on there for facilities. I just spoke to that earlier. Also see, for police remodel, I think I came up with budget discussion, as far as a holding cell and report writing. And I truly believe this is us here are being understated.
Yeah, that garage door is pretty shoddy. Is there a reason why we're putting it out till 2025?
We're just fixing the one bay that's dented.
On the police?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they don't make those panels anymore either, so. Tough spot.
So is this is for all the doors?
That's the rough estimate
Okay.
of it. Yeah, the new modern version is those.
Is there a chance we can get that one bay
I was gonna
at
say,
least fixed? I mean,
I
that's-
do have a quote for it, but they describe it where it's not gonna look like the one that doesn't look like the other ones, but that's what that was. First goal was that I don't make them anymore, so we'd have to order from Canada and version, but yeah, I can't stand the door either, so.
Well, it's not that,
um,
it's not usable, right?
It still works.
For how long?
Well, you know, this one, hopefully till 2025, if that's when the funding comes through, but, quote was, yeah, for a couple grand. Version that hopefully sent out at least.
I personally think we should get that fixed.
So that's not on here, though.
Mm-mm.
That's not a, I mean,
Right.
the full replacement is the 195 estimated in the.
Well, it's my first year going through this, so I'm not really sure what that looks like for,
Is it similar, the repair, I think?
That,
The repair, will it look similar then?
what they told me. Or yet, we found a couple old panels in the garage on top of the lockers that were in there. And now we're out of replacement.
So as it is right now, it's been
Hasn't been repaired.
by you all.
No, it's,
No.
well, somebody might have thrown a shoulder into it to try to get the dent back in alignment, so it's back on the rails, but it opens and closes. Now, so it's the DIY repair. Noticeable on the X.
Where a panel is that? Or are you talking about?
Yeah, that I'm not sure. I know that they're a heck of a lot stronger, so they can withstand the technology of them. What tends to happen is door starts to come down as squad car's backing in. Stop it if squad car happens to be version the sensors where back up prior to the squad car. Operational improvements that will now in the current.
Are they just trying to get in quick and close it too quick, or?
So they're on a timer, which is also kind of a security issue. If we're running out of police station on a call, the door's gonna stay open for a while without a cop sitting there, hey, I want, but this door closes and nobody runs inside the police department. New ones can timer and it closes in 2 seconds versus 5. That's the
There are like motion sensors that you can add on to the existing garage.
from like preventing it to damage the tops of squad cars, possibly. I don't know what that looks like or the cost that might be, but the sure thing is that the roll top ones do come. I mean, they're the
You need working doors.
Mm-hmm.
So
Appreciate it.
what that, when that looks like, keep us 2025, but
eyesore current.
I wouldn't say it's just an eyesore, I'd say functionally, and to properly make sure that your cars get in and out on a timer. Not to mention making sure nobody goes into the garage.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not,
Definitely a safety, definitely a safety impact. Relation to safety is
Something that has occurred or in the past.
not that I'm aware of, thankfully.
For the PD or for us? We have had issues primarily, the ambulance, garage door bay, similarly because of the extensive use and the amount of times that they come and go from that location. It's multiple times a day because they're not just responding, for us, but they're leaving here multiple times a day. And then once that truck leaves and comes back, then there's another one coming in for coverage. So that door goes up and down a lot, and it's been replaced a lot in the past. And we have a similar issue where their bottom panel, which is a metal one, is damaged, but, same issue. These garage doors were, when the building was built, for whatever reason, they're coming from Canada, and it takes a long time to get them. And we have tried to have spare parts and panels because we've learned that lesson on how long it takes. So we have a couple glass ones right now, but I have a lower metal one for the ambulance bay on order, and they're trying to locate one because similarly, same thing. Gets hit just because theirs is on a timer, and they open it too soon before they start backing in and hit that safety device, that I-beam or that sensor, takes that little bit of that garage door coming down and hitting the top of the ambulance. Happened before. So that's where most of the issues come back on that area. To be honest, if they had a policy like us, when you're backing up a fire truck, behind that truck, walking it in, we've had that issue before too, because at the garage door coming down, so we've made some adjustments on our side, but still, it's a problem. Doors and maintenance in general, so I just replaced one of our garage doors, and it was out for 7-8 weeks maybe, just because we were waiting for parts.
questions?
Would you say that impacts the service provider? They jump into the garage, like how much time is taking out of stay to address it? 8 weeks for the part, it's
Yeah,
about like, else you can anticipate?
well, for this repair, it was the motor. So it all depends. I mean, whether it's wintertime, I mean, these doors in the fire bay are extremely heavy. And they have, engineered basically 2 large springs on each side with a spring inside of them that are held up on casters to hold the weight of those heavy glass doors going up and down on cables and the maintenance for that. So, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but, we generally, we've had the same contractor who knows our equipment and knows what to expect and what's needed on these repairs. And like a vehicle, they need to be maintained as well. When he was out here doing it, he's like, we gotta fix these 2 doors because the cables are getting frayed before something breaks and falls. And so we're trying to keep up on that as well, because it's often, I'll get a call, whether it's from Lakeview or somebody else in the middle of the night or on the weekend, and be like, our door won't close, what do we do?
Or how much damage has happened to the vehicles when they hit these doors? What happens then? Are we out of commission for, just take the lid
Usually
bar off?
not. It's more damage happens to the door. The bottom panel of our garage doors is metal, and then the other upper panels are all glass. And again, times that I can remember that we've had a fire truck back into it, generally the ladder that sticks up and out further on the engine, that was first to hit the door on the ambulance. Pretty solid on the top, and they're hitting that panel and busting out the wheels from the tracks and happening. But not significant damage to the vehicles, it's more to the garage door itself. And it's a big issue in all of these buildings, whether it's ours or other stations that I see, how they're trying to deal with vehicles coming and going. The problem, no matter the high maintenance.
For the new doors you guys talking about, the ones at the new Oakdale, new Maplewood North, were they accordions go open that way?
Those, I'm not sure what he has. I doubt they have enough space for that.
No, the ones, the speed roll top ones are,
Still
pretty
up and down.
common at most. But different from the fire. At the top of the.
You know what you're talking about and what you've seen there, and we don't have enough space in between our doors to allow that.
Do open and close pretty quick.
Yeah.
Anything when this, the building cameras were updating the quality?
Yep.
It's on 9, it's right above the assessment of 25,000. I know you mentioned when you had damage to yours, you couldn't really even tell what was going on to your car out in the parking lot. Is that what we were talking about, replacing cameras?
Some of them are the old, what are they?
Yeah, they're fed with the wax cable. It's not running Cat5 digital picture, a lot more clear. So,
Much better resolution?
Oh, they're
That's
very
good, because there's,
Yep.
cameras make a big difference as far as their quality, so make sure we're doing them right. Thank you.
We'll move on to capital technology. There's not a lot in there. We've got data system, council AV technology.
We need to move that forward.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow?
Like, see all that forward?
Yesterday.
For real?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
seriously.
wondering.
No joke.
How long ago was that put in? I mean, that was. In the audio in here and then also in.
2019? Long before
I don't think so.
18 maybe, 18 or 19?
I believe on this item, Terry had reached out to, Metro INET, who, INET and, 9 North, who actually does all of our recordings. These numbers came from them and the time slots came from them. And it's
My understanding is the motherboard is out. Do we know what that's gonna cost us?
Just the cost of the whole thing again. Well, we're looking at another plan to try to figure out what we can
Right.
do.
That's. Unit as opposed to a first, I mean,
I think we should get
Whatever.
pricing for
Mhm.
units, so that way when we do get the motherboard, we can go have this.
Parts aren't, I mean, parts are gonna take this long, we can't afford to have something else go down again, is.
If you have that information. Installed, and, I mean, technology changes really quickly, so, even.
It's just the audio part of it, everything else is working just fine,
as of now.
so just the one side of it. Didn't even know the other room was hooked up, so it has audio and visual.
Bring over there and. On that one.
Oh.
Give them in a room this size to where.
And do we go through our IT people to do this, or is this?
Marco's the one that. North is the. Equipment through them.
Go a person or a company?
To do our.
I don't know,
paper shred.
I know if I get this
Man,
question.
paper,
I mean, for what it's worth, we need to figure something out for our community. I mean, right now, we have to shout to hear, and I watched I can't remember what it was, some commission, you can barely hear anybody, which I can't imagine right now what it sounds like.
You hear about 4 or 5 words and then the next 4 or 5. So,
a lot of times internet too, if we're going straight out through.
Certainly, if we can find a solution for that, I think for transparency and communication with the all the time,
Mm-hmm.
so.
yeah, I can start weekend.
Avenue, just to get somebody in there to give us just another opinion from somewhere else.
Any other questions on the capital? Move on to parks, playgrounds, paths, open space.
So for me, the first one that jumps out in 2024, the tennis court rehab, walking and trails. Brandy was able to secure $100,000 or something. So is the original number less what you were able to secure as a grant?
This amount that you see here includes the grant secured fund. I think somewhere else in the document, it separates the funding sources.
I thought the project cost when it originally came was right around $250,000, and then the grant was gonna come off of that.
There were some requirements for the grant agent.
Prevailing wages.
Prevailing
And
wages.
it did require kind of full ADA compliance. We couldn't phase it in, so.
We're adding a little bit of extra cushion on here just to make sure funding when we have the bids come. Hoping it'll come in less.
But it's, you know, I'm left scratching my head.
No,
The
right.
program was $250,000 without a
Correct.
grant,
Correct.
and with the grant, it's $462K.
No, the money.
No,
in
if you
that.
go to the project
Correct.
page, it'll break out the impact of the
But
funds.
Councilmember Cole, you're absolutely correct. It was approved in the 2023 budget at $250,000. For bid onto it, it came in, I think, about $400,000 was the total
For
amount.
the, all the
Then they got the
alternatives.
grant that
Okay.
dropped it down. Prices have gone up a little bit because of,
I didn't remember the $400K that came in. I just remember what was approved.
you're absolutely right.
Okay.
New ADA sidewalk.
Yes, yes, dang right.
I noticed there's a couple plans on here, for 2024, the McKnight Fields Master Planning. I'll just say that there are plenty of grants out there right now for active living type grants, so,
If I'm not mistaken, both of those are fees to pay a consultant to see what it looks like. It doesn't have anything to do with lift and shovel one for dirt. It has to do with planning.
can you talk about the passive part?
That, the recommendation that came out of our plan, that passive park in that document is a number of city parcels that align, I think it's across the street from M&I Home. The point of this is to prepare. Turn it park.
So is it all the
trees.
all the ones that are wooded with the high slope, or is it
Exactly,
the
the
big
big hill.
giant triangle at the intersection?
It's the slope, the wooded slope
Okay.
area.
Cool. Good park.
And the sidewalk along McKnight,
That is pulled out from the master plan as well. Agree with where I think you're going, that there is probably some transportation, so we could try to. The prioritization of these items, I'm also pulling from those documents. Thinking of when projects should happen, based on staff availability, long-range plans out.
speak to some of the Gateway Trail improvements?
That was again from the redevelopment master plan, and I don't think there was any specific guidance there other than we have a number of places in the downtown that was accessed. Moved in terms of appearance,
And the city's responsible for that
well,
when it goes
what
through?
do you think?
I would wager money that the DNR would say that access improvements for local access to their trail would be the responsibility of the local. With exploring as a, you know, if there's gonna be some study or investigation as to what the right improvements might be, some of that would involve coordination.
Well, and the only reason why I ask is because you were painting inside, right? One of those tunnels.
Yeah.
And we're told pretty much not to.
Yes.
Because we
Oh.
were,
That was DOT, so.
The
was it not?
DNR.
Oh, it's DNR?
Yeah.
Oh.
The DNR maintains the trail, they plow it and maintain years, and then they're not doing this at ours, so.
so I guess I'd look at that for the trail access improvements, because if DNR is responsible for that, then it shouldn't be.
In the past, there was a lot of discussion around wayfinding signs. Would that also be a part of that?
Certainly could be included in the scope.
Out of curiosity, are we responsible for the signage of the Gateway Trail itself? So at Rotary, there was a new sign that was placed with the mapping of it. Did we replace that?
We newly installed it. Rotary paid for it, I think we
Oh.
installed it.
Okay.
Other questions on the parks?
One of the things I've heard a lot of people talk about is a general theme, and I'm hoping this improves, with the funding that was dedicated to a dedicated grant, procurement position. I think we're all hoping a lot of these can be, you know, reduced from the city budget and more grant focused. It'd be interesting as we progress along this path next year and the year after to be able to see how much of these have been reduced by that position that was created, to make sure that there's value in what's created.
There is another report in here that does show everything by funding source. We only identify. We're gonna wanna do a quick little recap of the discussion that we've been having today. Some of the items that will be further cost perspective, looking at stores, technology, and then came up from parks. And that's when we're going. I am keeping notes. I was gonna go at the end. I'll kind of give you an update as we're moving.
Thank you.
Any other questions on parks, playgrounds, custom open? On to pavement preservation. A number of different items. Being predominantly what you're gonna. 208th Street maintenance, and it'll be known as pavement rehabilitation. That's the additional. From what Ron had, major projects that are here on the pavement preservation. Andy and/or Morgan.
City Hall lots, is that redoing them all? 75?
We'll assess them and see what they actually need. This was dollars that were put in. I mean, we got some rough numbers, square foot numbers for what, these numbers will be fairly close to like redoing them, whether it be a maintenance overlay or a grind, or if we just seal coat them or whatever it might be. Just before they get too far, past gone where we had to really redo them all. The striping, just so you guys know, our main roads, the county does our striping for us. So they have, big truck, so each year, depending on paint has gone up the last couple of years, but the county comes in, they have a map, and they do, 7th, they do Margaret, they do First, they do pretty much kind of all the main thoroughfares around, Public Works building. That is what that striping.
So all
yearly.
all of that, even parking lots?
No,
Oh, they don't?
they don't do any parking lots. It's
We
just
do that?
kind of main roads. We have a company that does.
Okay.
That striping is basically just for that.
For the Casey Lake parking lot, is that, both parking lots or just?
I believe it's for both. I'd have to look. I believe it's for both though.
Money's downstream, but what's the old medical center parking lot? Why am I drawing a blank? What's the old medical center?
That's right next to Sidewinders.
Yeah, that's one we.
Oh, that's the same property we keep talking about? You were right.
Really, we're gonna talk about that again?
The property.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To rename that.
And if we can do it for 29,000, let's do it now.
Like I said, some of these numbers need some adjustments. Funny that you picked that up.
Any more questions on the?
Oh, sorry.
I was looking at it's 2025, but it looks like there's 210,000 allocated for Sepulveda between Margaret and Helen for the parking lot. I guess, what I'm thinking with that is, redevelopment master plan, how does that intersect with oriented?
I don't think that it has any recommendation to that parking lot, so any within that right of way, unless there's suggestions.
And the McKnight parking lot that's on here for 2025 also will have to do with that plan and what that's gonna look like and what that. Because that McKnight parking lot was on for 2023, and I believe the number was, we had $250,000, and if we were gonna do something different with the tennis courts, or just what's gonna happen down there. So again, we pushed it out, we doubled the number, just not knowing really what the plan is gonna be, so.
We'll use that parking lot? The students use that parking lot?
Yes. Not as much as they used to, but there is some.
are there, grades to the park itself for McKnight?
I believe we have there's money in there for fencing,
Dugout,
yeah,
Not till 20.
dugouts, 2 of them are redone, 2 of them are not.
it was my vision that once we had a completed design plan, then we would be able to have accurate.
Kind of that whole McKnight complex with that master plan that they're looking at, I think that all kind of, I'm assuming that's all gonna be kind of included in that whole plan.
There's been just some discussion around that with Parks and Rec. What that one, they would like to see that look like.
Other questions? Move on to ponds, natural resources, and environment.
Sure, quick. I usually have to.
Yeah, you know, not everything's short, right?
Yeah, Emerald Ash Borer, that's just, keeping up, maintaining our, trying to stay on top as best we can. Grant opportunities out there, so, yeah, that's kind of brief overview. That ponds vegetation, that money is put in for, maintaining all of our, rain gardens, all the different ponds that we have. Quick Trip, up by Christ Lutheran Church, behind, Silver Lake, maintaining all those ponds. I think I spoke about it a little bit at the last, meeting, but they're planted, they put in, hundreds of plants in there, and they need to be maintained. We have our people go in there and do it, including myself, and pull out the wrong stuff. So this is kind of for maintaining all of our ponds, so they stay working how they should. There's a lot of money that goes into them. Morgan, you can correct me or add, there's the bottoms of these ponds are meant to drain when they're done. There's, drain tile on the bottom of them, so they just need to be maintained and upkept properly. So this is something that'll be an ongoing year after year.
I'd just add that, it's more than just stormwater function too, it's aesthetics. I mean, a lot of these basins are in residential areas across the street or next door to people's properties, and they expect to not have invasive species or thistles going to seed and that sort of thing. We've had a lot of complaints years. So this item it's comprehensive. It's not just one basin. It allows them all to be kind of managed by horticulturists that know what they're doing, and includes weeding and replanting if necessary, if some of the good species die out. And really is kind of an add-on. It started with the Silver Lake biofiltration area at the corner of 19th and Lake Boulevard, where unintentionally, city maintenance did crush some of the drain tile that was in the bottom of that basin, and then it stopped functioning from a stormwater standpoint. So these folks are using small equipment or just hand tools, and they're definitely well qualified to make sure that that sort of thing doesn't happen again, which the fix for that was a lot of funding from both the city and the watershed district to repair that back to where it was previously. And so these dollars will help everything working from a stormwater standpoint, but also hopefully reduce complaints from the people that live around them, like, and how they're kept up and how they're managed.
How about around Silver Lake on the south side there, where they're trying to bring it back to natural? Is that, they look at that too, as far as, those trees are starting to pop up and starting to.
Yeah, I don't think that they manage
part of
the
it? Okay.
shoreline. If we wanted an opinion, I think they'd be qualified, but we've also got the watershed district as doing any work on that shoreline, is gonna require a permit from the watershed district as well too. So that may be a coordination item if we're thinking some of those volunteer trees are getting out of control. But there has been some kind of partnership back and forth in the corner there, knowing that, City Public Works does do some mowing. So there's some areas that are mowed like lawn areas, but aren't shoreline that require permitting. And then there's other areas that require kind of more handwork, I guess, from. Right now, it seemed like this summer was a test and it seemed to work out really good. I think they're probably the best they've looked in a while.
And, the pond dredging and maintenance, that's different than the main gardens. That's some of our catch ponds that get filled with sediment that we monitor, and it might have to be mucked out in the winter time to have the capacity to keep everything flowing and working the way.
This whole category, not that it would affect the budget, is there an education partnership opportunity there? Where does one go to learn the people that we hire to do this? Is any of that coming from Century?
So the city could certainly provide educational materials to the public. I think both watershed districts that are within the city, so Valley Branch is that area immediately around Silver Lake, pretty specifically. And then most of the city is Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District. They always are looking for opportunities to provide more educational material. Now, there may be a cost share, but,
I was more wondering about like the student-built housing, or the teachers at,
oh,
where you go to learn this,
yeah.
is that sort of educational opportunity?
That I'm not aware of, but I think that there's certainly North St. Paul and other cities have some versions of this infrastructure that if there were an educational facility like the high school, for example, or, a grade school or something from a technical college standpoint that wanted to, learn more about how we do things, we'd be open to that. We had, years ago, North St. Paul participated with the U of M resiliency program, where we actually had a lot of graduate and undergrad students come out and build their capstone projects, and everything from engineering to like law to community planning. And that was many, many years ago. But, one of the things was that I participated on was a hydrology class with some engineering students at the university, and they did a study in terms of phosphorus loading. It's going to sound really boring and engineering-like, but phosphorus loading within the community and what were some of the most cost-effective ways that they could identify, is it building more ponds? Is it doing, and one of the outcomes from that study by those students was that one of the most cost-effective methods was kind of advanced or increased or more aggressive street sweeping in and around kind of our lake areas. I think you guys are doing early or double or more street sweeping in and around those lake areas than in the past as a result of that, right? So I think the opportunities are there. I don't know of anything specifically, but if someone were to contact Public Works or even myself, I'd certainly, encourage it as something to consider, especially if it's, low or no cost to the city.
Any other questions or comments for resources?
In terms of invasive species, are there ways in which you're doing that to manage now? Sometimes we have talked about different ways of managing goats, for example. Is that something?
For the pond maintenance?
Just kind of generally.
Well, no, that has been brought up to my attention multiple times about the goats, so it's definitely something we're gonna check into. Again, I don't have any experience with that, but,
There's a grant out there for it, correct?
apparently there's a grant out there for goats, and, yeah, they'll come in and eat up all your buckthorn and the tires off your car if you're not careful. But no, that's stuff that we're gonna check into.
Go to big ticket items, street utility. CIP plan, 11, page 11 of the package, 2 of the package. So what you're seeing here is in 2025, 27, 29, our funding reconstruction projects. On that, here you can see where the Settle Boulevard conversion design plan, order design plans are.
In terms of the pavement rehabilitation plan, or project, there was some discussion around, how streets were selected, based off of the PCI index, PCI. I think we had a question about what is the ideal, like, range, that we'd be shooting for. And we, I mean, how much
Right.
of it are we doing?
It's an important question. And I know I wasn't at the last meeting, so if I'm repeating things that were discussed, I mean, just interrupt me or whatever. But I think that every year we take a quick look at the city's street condition, re-examining it, boots on the ground, a third of the city at a time. So every third year, we've got a reasonably accurate representation from a PCI standpoint, 0 to 100 scale, to be able to kind of rate distresses or cracks or failures, with 100 being a brand new road that was just built, and 0 being pretty much it's gone to gravel at that point. To truly answer your question, what is the right number? It's going to vary city to city. So in my experience in North St. Paul, things have been more budget constrained or budget driven, to do as much as, financially feasible at any given time, whether that's a larger project or a smaller project. And a couple different cadences have been used throughout the years. But this idea of, a larger reconstruct project, like 2025 on the CIP is listed Buell, Gerald, and Shawnee Drive. So that's up by Casey Lake area. That's an area that has been in some fashion or another on the capital improvement plan or pavement preservation map since 2013, really, and it was out there, right? And so it's still in the future. But that's one category of project that is more invasive. It's certainly more expensive. It also entails more underground work. And I think as myself and Public Works have kind of convened over the last 2 budget cycles and CIP development cycles, we see less of those projects moving forward. I know this is a 10-year plan, but sometimes we're trying to predict, how things might evolve, I guess, in terms of an approach. So you see a couple here in the odd years, I'll say the odd years, 25, 27, 29. And we see more of a shift towards, again, pavement preservation, less underground utility work, although as you dig into the actual project possibilities here, we are trying to identify some other utility enterprise funding for things like manhole castings or things that might be utility related, but you would take care of while you're doing an overlay, for example. We're trying to be comprehensive with that. Being budget constrained, the North St. Paul City Council has never had that active conversation about choosing a target PCI number on average for the whole city. Other cities do. I can't say that the number that, for example, the city of Matamidi uses for a target is going to be the right target for North St. Paul. It's probably would be a really dumb thing to say, but it depends. One, right now, I guess, based on the right page here, I think that for this year or going into next year, the average PCI for the city is 56.4. Okay. Again, using Matamidi, who WSB does similar work with, and who they have set a target, and they have a similar amount of roadway miles, I guess, just for comparison. But again, totally different community, different roads. They have a lot of uncurbed roads there, rural drainage in some of the areas. So I don't think it's you cannot use this as an apples to apples comparison. But they have a target of 78. There is a gap there in terms of where North St. Paul's average road rating is and another city. Now, if the city council wanted to have further discussion, doesn't have to be right now to, modify or impact this particular CIP, but as CIPs are things that are revisited on an annual basis and can evolve, in that 10-year time frame that you're looking ahead, that certainly would be something that, could help the city council and the public understand this is what we're shooting for. But when you shift from, a budget constrained model, I guess, in terms of trying to evaluate what's next or what streets are next or what size project is next, and if you go to a PCA target constrained model, just using the software as a model, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you set your budget at. But if you want to try to achieve something, then the funding levels probably are going, that it's reporting back, are probably going to be higher than what we have, what is proposed in this capital improvement plan, and probably from what has been or implemented in the past, I would say. Right? So I know that Ron had some information that I gave him using just some general scenarios that we're trying to help inform, not knowing what the right size of investment is on an annual or every other year basis, but just trying to get a feeling for, the what if scenarios. I think what we have here, and maybe I would admit that probably we're a bit conservative. So I think that, what was reported to you before is that at this level of investment or a similar level investment for pavement preservation, plus the maintenance dollars that Finance Director Winnick mentioned earlier together, that level of funding is not necessarily going to hold the average where it is. It might decrease slightly over time. And kind of a corollary question that came out of that was, well, what would it take? Like what level of investment would it take to hold it the same? So again, there's a lot of, it's only as good as the information that you put in. So there's a lot of assumptions here, but I did kind of ask the model those questions. You assume in the even years only reclaim projects, which are more expensive. They go through all the asphalt pavement, but they last longer than just regular overlay. The annual budget or amount needed to hold the average PCI where it is right now is approximately $2.4 million a year, all in, not just go to the indirect costs that go along with that. If we assume in the even years only mill and overlays, the annual budget needed to hold the average PCA is approximately $1.9 million a year. Now, if you look at the budget numbers that are included in the CIP for pavement preservation, and my screen went off, but it was like right around 1.7. You got approximately $300,000, give or take, for there could be maintenance overlays, and maintenance overlays will impact positively the overall average score for the city, right? So that can be counted. There are other things that are needed with those dollars too, I'm sure, whether that's filling potholes or other things, right? So you don't want to count all of that, but I guess from where I sit, my opinion is you're not too far off from that. And I think that's borne by the numbers that we saw from an average PCI projection, where we're at right now, only slightly decreasing, right? It does go down. You're not that far off. And really, there's so many factors that go into how long a roadway lasts, right? And that's why we re-rate the roads a third every year, is because the computer's just assuming that an overlay is going to last X number of years. I don't know what the number is, but if you build that road on, or if that road was built originally on really poor soils, it might be 15 years or less. If it's decent soils and it's holding up well, I mean, it could be 20 or 25 years. So there is some give or take with that kind of assumption that a funding number is going to hold an average, if making that statement is important for the council. And that may, again, the North St. Paul has never set a target. It's always tried to do, I guess, from a general sense, from a funding constraint or funding feasibility standpoint, what can be done, and trying to spend those dollars in the right order at the right time to try to maximize or have those dollars go as long as they can, knowing that sometimes it's not about improving the worst streets first. Sometimes it makes sense to do some maintenance overlays or some interim improvements to a roadway to try to extend its life to the point where maybe you can count on another 20 years out of that road before you come back to it, as opposed to just doing every 15 years or less. You're going to have to. At some point, every road is going to reach its kind of serviceable life, or get to the point where it's past the point where it can be overlaid, right? You're just kind of putting a Band-Aid on it. It might look good for a couple of years, but those cracks on any overlay do come through. And so the balancing act here is to try to get as many of those roads, and this goes to that shift of mindset, as I was saying, from big underground reconstruct projects to more coverage on a pavement preservation standpoint over time. Could be 10 years away, right, before that total shift happens. But knowing that if some of that existing roadway that might be in that, I don't know, 35 to 55 or 60, somewhere in that realm where it can still be overlaid, that you'll be able to, get the most out of those roads before it turns into a large reconstruct.
Councilmember Wong, I'll just add, we have the road studies done, we go off of that, we talk to the guys that do the blacktopping, that walk the streets, walk every foot of the street. We all sit down, talk, and we just don't solely go off, all right, here's all the lowest, and we're starting from the bottom, the lowest score and going up, and that's how we're gonna decide. There's a kind of a lot of factors that go into it. Guys are like, oh my God, this road is way worse than this one, and so we factor a lot of different things. Does this road have curb on it, curb and gutter? How much curb and gutter is gonna have to be replaced on it? When we're doing these, we're not going in and redoing all the curb and gutter in there, but we look at, well, this won't take a ton of curb and gutter, so we can get more road covered. The whole idea behind this whole process is that we have so many roads that are bad. We're trying to get as much covered as we can, so we can tell the residents, if we can get these roads covered up, it'll buy us some time with the budget that we have, and just try to get the most bang for our buck right now. And we'll do this for a couple of years, see how we feel it's working out, and then go from there.
I think one thing that just also comes to mind as after, and I think we talked meeting too, was in regards to the usability that it adds, and how the trade-off may be whether, for instance, a sidewalk can go in, or so that may delay off for another 20 years. Fine. So with that said, and looking at some of the plans, and I'm just wondering if an update to the Living Streets Plan, and/or be helpful in farming the pavement rehabilitation.
I would say that from a pavement rehabilitation standpoint, that could be held separate. And as Ron was talking about, other factors that go into whether or not a project might be included or not, like, for example, a planned sidewalk or water main breaks is a driver from a maintenance standpoint. Might be a street that might be perfect for a mill and overlay, but if the water main underneath it is failing constantly, then it probably needs to be replaced and might need to be fully reconstructed just to be able to get at that under. From a Living Streets Plan standpoint, I'll defer to Community Development Director Howe's opinion. Certainly, I would say that there is some good information in the comprehensive plan with respect to planned sidewalks that I think at the time was intended to hopefully supersede or at least provide more clear direction from a non-motorized facility standpoint than the Living Streets Plan originally did, going back to 2010 or 11, or about that time is when that was completed and adopted by council. There's a lot of discussion about and reconstruct projects that the city led, that sidewalks that were identified within the Living Streets Plan were actually left out of that project, whatever reason. So the comprehensive plan and the chapter on pedestrian facilities, or whatever it's called, was supposed to help inform that. Certainly there might be an opportunity for more information or different information than that as time goes on, but I guess at this point, usually what I would do is refer to the Living Streets Plan and the comprehensive plan, where that falls in terms of planned facilities, and go from there.
Would agree. It has enough detail.
So like it's updated enough.
To the point that we have projects that would necessitate. Or we could do another approach and say, maybe we need a policy on definitively if we're doing.
Right, that kind of incongruent approach to maybe a previously adopted plan. Requires the city to do everything that their plans say, but that.
There's no consistency requirement for the non-comp plan in the city.
Correct. And that would be, like your point is, that might be a policy discussion. Yeah.
Any other questions on street and utility reconstruction?
I'll just say that I still think it's under.
I absolutely. I was gonna use this for my closing statement, but I think I'll use it now. We've heard the words budget constraints. We see that there's a lot of need. How do we move the PPI index up? Since the time that I arrived here, we've made quantum leaps for our city council support. And what have we done? We've developed and we're maintaining a capital improvement plan that's 10 years that didn't exist. What are we starting this year? Or last year we started the other component to it, we're carrying it forward this year. 10-year financial plans, planning on how you're going to fund it. Tried it last year, the insurance kicked in, reduced the amount that we wanted to put in for this pavement rehabilitation. This year, took a different concept and a different approach, dedicated levies for these. That may, if you heard me, 2% may not have been the correct amount, it may be 2.5%. But we're moving in the right direction, and it's all due to the city. let's keep on moving. And yes, even at 2%, there's a budget constraint, moving in the right direction. I applaud what this city. I did wanted to get that, that was gonna be my closing statement, but now I'll have to come up with another one. You can look forward to that. But,
I got all the faith in the world in you.
The next item, that we have, and this is, I think, our last item, because we started off with vehicles and equipment, is the utility infrastructure preservation. There's some pretty big ticket items, and these are items that are related to our enterprise funds. Questions on there, some big ticket items that I talked about that power, which is a million. Water main looping. Replacement, because they're approaching.
Is there any opportunity with the federal infrastructure funds for
Off the top.
I don't know.
There certainly are for EV charging stations, in the area, but just seeing and hearing things around in different cities, if, like, the big ticket item being underground wire replacement is probably a maintenance over a year thing that you gotta replace the old. So a lot of times, maintenance, whatever, might not score as well as expansion or enhancement of a system from a resiliency or sustainability standpoint, but Dan's point, it certainly could be something.
my understanding is that literally with the EV chargers that just across the board, there's just not enough of that infrastructure unless you have. But, there should be also state funding. It'd be more of a destination if we had.
With the required lead, and I think this is the right category, with the required lead pipe test that they're requiring everyone to do, are we expecting more direction of replacement that we're gonna have to build into this in the future if it is identified? Once the testing component of this is done as a city?
I would answer yes. We don't know exactly what that's gonna look like until we kind of go through this initial inventory phase. I think it's also gonna different cities will be different, but, say that if one city shows a greater need than another, I think it might drive funding availability, potentially of IIJA funds, which are gonna roll through the drinking water revolving. We have come across, just with reconstruction projects, a couple that I'm aware of, maybe a little more, lead service lines. I don't think that we think that there's entire neighborhoods or anything like that, but we'll have to go through that process of that inventory, see what it says, and then depending on how competitive those grant dollars are, see, how they could capture it. Some cities who are ahead of the curve, or they have known for some time that they have some issues that need to be addressed. They're already on the intended use priority list, if you want to call it, with the drinking water revolving fund. And so there are 2024 dollars that are getting out of outstate communities, but in some larger cities like St. So that could certainly, it could, you might have an area where, if identified, for capture of some of those dollars, but at the same time, we have some problem mainline water main that would all get replaced at the same, help offset water dollars for those types of. At this point, we just don't have the information to say it's this street or it's this area, or do we even really have an identified that's not, a specific service here or service there? Can it even be packaged into a project? We don't know that.
If you had a guess, what year would you say the state would say that they want to set for a target for all lead lines to be eliminated? 2045? Is that?
Has that
And
been
how
stated? I don't
It
know if
hasn't
they
been
have.
stated. What I've kind of got out of the webinars and things I've sat in on that is that they don't know how big this is gonna get. And when they talk about funding, what they're gonna have for grants, what they're gonna have for help, what they're gonna have for help for residents, for city part, I think that the first step here is them trying to just gather, and it's gonna take years to gather this information legitimately. And when they talk about excavating, like I said, if I could have access to everyone's home tomorrow and find out what is in their house, I still don't know what's on the other side of that curb stop connecting to the main. There's just not a perfect way to do that unless you excavate, and that's, I don't know, that's costly to do that. When you talk about bad roads, they dig through the roads to find out what's going on there. So they're very vague on what they're saying. They're like, hey, we'll take this step. There's gonna be money. Hey, you can put in for help, but we don't need it. I think one of the webinars I sat in, they said, hey, we have, and don't quote me on these numbers, but we have $40 million set aside for this, and it's a $100 billion project. So they're so far apart on where things are at. So I don't know. I don't really have anything honed in on that yet, or when that's gonna be. I want to get through this first step. I got till August 16th of 24.
October.
Or excuse me, October. Yeah. Cut myself short here.
We're gonna need those 2 months.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we don't have a good answer for that yet.
I just have the expectation that this could be one of the big balloons out there that could be a surprise number for us as a city, along with all the other cities. So I was just kind of wondering what your thoughts are, if you agree with that statement of a potential big cost for the city in a 20 to a 25-year plan?
At least with the information I have available right now, and you guys, if you agree or disagree, I don't see it as being something where we think we're gonna find, like, to use the word balloon, I guess I wouldn't characterize it like that. There may be some costs, and like as Ron said, a lot of the agencies out there, whether it's Department of Health or others, they just keep talking about, hey, there's money, there's gonna be money there, there's gonna be money there for you. Now, how that gets kind of prioritized and whether it's competitive or not, that's yet to be seen. So I think as soon as we have more clarity in terms of, well, what do we know? And some of what, after you get to October of 2024, we know that, we're not going to dig holes at every single water service in the city, right? There are going to be some that are going to be categorized as unknown or unknown with maybe, just based on the age of the housing stock or the age of the water main that's in the street based on, available information of what year that was installed. There is, there's a way to kind of categorize this, and I'm not going to know every inch of pipe necessarily underground, but we can at least try to provide some sort of a matrix so that the city and the state agencies and ultimately the EPA at Washington, D.C. are able to get a little bit clearer picture of what's going on.
What's so hard about it, I've been here for 16 years, just the water main breaks that I've worked on, been in the holes where you see somebody's line. You have, this house was built in 1898 and they have a copper water line. We came across it. And that would be, you think that'd be a lead, what, so there's really no, and I think I have seen probably, we've come across probably 5, say a handful of lead services. And if we've seen them in the ground, we've replaced them. Again, this is back, we're going back the last 16 years, knowing what we know now, it'd be nice, hey, we'd be able to document that and have that information, but there's just no real rhyme or reason. I think they're allowing you to eliminate houses that were built after 1976, I believe. You can kind of take off the list as lead. But on the flip side of that, you really don't know what's going out to that main. You really don't know. But so it's going to be a work in progress, and
Appreciate that.
I really didn't give you a good answer, but
No,
that's what I know for now.
to me, you guys are more educated than I am, so how concerned you guys are about that balloon or possible big ticket item?
I've been losing
future
sleep
is-
for the last couple of months. I'm like, I gotta get this done, we gotta get this done, but WSP is gonna help us and, just get this first step done. And then I think it's just gonna be kind of going from there to see how things are gonna.
And we did put in for some funding assistance for a chunk of that, which we haven't heard back from them, but we expect that the Department of Health will be paying for, I don't know, a third of the overall effort or half
Yeah,
or
I was
something
able to
like
apply
that.
for some of that assistance with that for this first step. Get that going, and then moving forward here, I'll be looking for every opportunity that we can.
Any other questions?
Does PFAS impact your work
Mhm.
here? Yeah.
Oh, here in North St.
Yeah.
Paul? No, not at this time, but I'm familiar. I mean, one of my.
What I can tell you about the PFAS is that we never had to test for it up until the last year. Minnesota Department of Health, they extended the range out a little bit. We have, they've tested all of our wells. They've detected some, which is, it's a super, super low level. It's not even, close to dangerous or anything like that. But they've expanded it out, the area out from the campsite, and they're just gonna keep monitoring, 2 of our wells that had a trace in it, but there's nothing that's close to dangerous levels.
We have gotten through the CIP plan. No, I haven't heard any changes for the 2024. All the amounts that are in here for the 2024 column are included in other. They're either source was the general fund. You've already seen it. If it's in the enterprise. Basically, we've gone through everything. I'm not hearing any. Again, to kind of recap, we're looking at, more information, vehicles and equipment. Test, first counseling. Funding sources. See that, there's a lot of, works in some other areas. The next years, education. Species. Sure that we're putting that to out that's gonna allow us cash flow some major reconstruction projects instead of funding. At the transportation plan, the use plan, making sure that they're doing, you know, also aware of the, we go to the bottom line, 10 years, we got $79 million that have been identified. And I think what we can see, and from the conversation today, this isn't right. And if we were to go higher or lower, what just show is that? Is that there's the
Price is right.
price is right, higher or lower? What would you go, higher or lower? Higher, absolutely higher. So again, what we're doing today is starting to dedicate some of those levy dollars is achieving on the right path of where we're going. I absolutely, you know, feel for the residents that, you know, that it is a levy impact, and I know each and every one of you do, but if we don't, we're gonna be paying much, much more into the future. We're going to lose residents because we don't have adequate streets, we don't have adequate parks, and that comes, the burden's gonna get even higher and higher, but the costs have not. So I wanna conclude with, I wanna thank each and every one of the department heads for being here. They're the ones who submit this. They also get together and review everybody's CIP plan before it is ever presented and pulled together. City. I want to thank Mary Kay, developing this plan. She took the leadership role in compiling all of this information. I've been a great. I want to thank Brian for his support as manager and leading the direction and making sure that we're doing this planning. Because if we don't plan, we can't plan for funding. If we don't have funding, it doesn't matter what we do. Nothing's ever going to happen. And I want to thank the city council for the support that they give to each department heads.
Just thank you everyone for your work
Thank you.
and putting this plan together.
Any Monday night with a
Yeah.
football game kickoff is in 10 minutes.
Plan accordingly. Good.
Adjourn the meeting?
Did we want to,
Can we do that here?
can we?
I don't know. We received a letter from some,
Cannot.
cannot?
Done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's on the special, on the.
All right, there we go. We got that answer.
All right, there we go.
Thank you.
Call for adjournment?
So moved.
All right, everybody, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Swear and Cole.
Thank you.
I just made up two names.
Good thing they're both here.
It was a tie. Everybody was a tie.
Technically,